Call the meeting to order. If we have any electronic devices, if you could please silence them, we'd greatly appreciate it. In addition, we're asking everyone to speak directly into the microphone so everything can be properly recorded. We will have two opportunities to have public comments. The first one will be in the beginning of the meeting for items that are action items or consent, and then non-agenda items will be in after the meeting towards the end. Please fill out the speakers form that we have. I'd like to ask Commissioner Jana from Osceola County to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we all stand, please? Commissioner.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Jana. Starting this morning from the MAC representative from Lake Mary Commission, Jordan Smith. Commissioner Smith, I'd like to welcome you to MetroPlan. And I know that there's a lot of good experience you'll be bringing to us. We did have a meeting, myself, Secretary Tyler, Bob O'Malley, and Gary Hutman on June 4th. We discussed the Sunshine Corridor PD&E, and there are a couple of sections in the PD&E for public input. Mr. Hutman's gonna be talking about that a little bit later, as well as Bob O'Malley. The reason why we had a meeting was because there needs to be both public participation for the PD&E as well as the business side and the citizen side. So OEP is going to be asked to participate in the business side. So O'Malley is here today and he'll be discussing that a little bit further on our agenda. But I wanted to thank the Secretary for not bringing us together, but allowing us to participate in this process. So thank you, Secretary, for doing that. In the past, we did talk about the I-4 St. John's Bridge. We've had several of the resolutions that have been given to us. I wanted to thank everyone, and I'm hoping that we can move this further along. We are going to be talking to a couple other cities that are not here today about rounding out the other resolutions that we would be talking about. Also want to thank our colleagues from Orange and Osceola County for taking action, the request that we made for the resolution of supporting the Lake to Lake Trail that we heard about in May, which will go from Lake Harney all the way down to Lake Okeechobee. So I want to particularly thank Osceola and Orange counties for helping with that. And we did hear about that in our past meetings, so thank you for doing that. And then before we get into safety moment, I would like to thank, or not thank, but congratulate one of our colleagues, Commissioner Constantine. He's been very involved with the Florida Association of Counties. He did receive the Lifetime Achievement Award. That's an award that is not given out every year. It's the Marlene Young Lifetime Achievement Award for his service that he had with not just the city of Altamont, but also with the state, House of Representatives and Senate, as well as the county. And I know Lee is not here today at this moment, but I wanted to thank him and recognize him for that. And also want to next go to the safety moment. We'll hear from staff. This month's safety moment is we're talking about teen drivers.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, board members. The safety moment for this month is about teen drivers. Teen drivers' fatal crashes have increased 10% from pre-COVID. Crash trends indicate that serious injuries and fatalities involving teen drivers show a significant increase, and these are related mostly to speeding and aggressive driving, as well as not wearing a seatbelt. Also, the FDOT Teen Safe Driving Coalition recently published their latest fact sheet, and Orange County has been identified as the county in Florida having the most serious injuries involving teen crashes. There are various efforts to address the impacts of the factors that impact teen drivers the most. And these include the new law in Florida that started July 1st, 2025, that requires teens age 15 to 17 to complete a state-approved driver's education course before they obtain their learner's permit. Previously, the requirement was only to complete a traffic law and substance abuse course before obtaining the learner's permit. The FDOT Teen Safe Driving Coalition is also leading a number of safety education campaigns targeting high schoolers, including the Battle of the Belts, intending to address seatbelt use, and distributing a number of education materials, including this guide to parents. This guide is distributed by mail to all parents of teens that have recently obtained their learner's permit. Another important resource to reduce the risk of teenagers being involved in a serious crash is the Florida Sheriff's Association Teen Driver Challenge. This program was created in 2007, and it is available in 42 counties across the state. The Teen Driver Challenge is a voluntary program, and it is not intended to replace the driver's education course. It is intended to improve the skills and confidence of teen drivers, ultimately reducing the risk of them being involved in a serious crash. This program combines classroom instruction and also practical exercises, focusing on important maneuvers such as cornering, backing, emergency braking. The course is open to teen drivers between ages of 15 and 19 that have held a learner's permit or a Florida driver license for at least 6 months. This program is free to participants, and it is taught by certified law enforcement officers. There is a great benefit related to potential discounts for insurance for those teens that complete the program. I want to share that my son, who's 17 years old, recently completed this program. He was not very excited in the beginning. He was not happy about taking a class on a Saturday morning, but at the end, he was glad that he participated in the program. He mentioned that he feels that he learned important and valuable driving techniques, and he found the practical exercises to be the most important part of the class. He also mentioned that it was fun and engaging, and overall a positive interaction with law enforcement. Now we're going to watch a short video that provides more details about the program.
Let's face it, driving in Orlando can be scary, even more so if you're new behind the wheel. That's why the Orange County Sheriff's Office has a class designed for teen drivers to get them more comfortable on the road.
The Sheriff's Office, in partnership with the Florida Sheriff's Association, recently launched the Teen Driver Challenge in Orange County.
It's a program that's designed to assist teen drivers with learning a little more about responsible driving, defensive driving, good driving habits and practices that'll help keep them alive on the road.
The course, which is open to drivers between ages 15 and 19, is a mix of classroom learning and hands-on experience. The goal? Reducing the chances of teens being involved in a crash.
Kids love getting their permit, and then they get their car and their freedom. It's fun, but at the same time, we want you to be safe, we want you to be smart, and always keep your eyes on the road.
The 8-hour course starts in the classroom, where the teens first learn the do's and don'ts of staying safe on the road. Then it's outside, where instructors walk the teens around the vehicles, letting them check the tire pressure, and inspect what's under the hood.
That 4,000-pound vehicle that they're driving can become a very dangerous object if they don't care for it the way they should.
Now that the cars are checked, the teens are brought out here to the driving pad, and they're paired with a certified driving instructor.
Teens get to test their driving skills, cornering, backing up, emergency braking, and skid recovery.
You get to like make the mistakes that you usually wouldn't be able to and then figure out how you would get out of those situations. So that's pretty cool.
The teens aren't graded on their skills, so there's no failing this course, but they are provided feedback and given tips on how to be better drivers.
It gives us an opportunity to show them some good habits and keep the community safe and keep our teens safe, which in turn keeps the road safer and all the community members as well.
To get more information on the Teen Driver Challenge, including how to sign up for the course, go to ocso.com/teen driver.
Oh, and in case you were wondering, there is no parallel parking test. For the Orange County Sheriff's Office, I'm John Busdecker.
Again, the program is offered in 42 counties across the state. And the requirement is not that you live in the county to be able to register a teen. In fact, I live in Orange County, but the class was full by the time that I was trying to register my son. So I went to Osceola County. I was able to register my son there. Again, free to participants. There is a registration process, but it is not that complicated, and it is very, very important for teens to learn these skills. It's voluntary.
Thank you.
Now, with that, any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Don't see any questions? Mayor, sorry.
How long is the class, and there is a cost, I know, to the agencies. Do you know what that is?
Well, the class is 8 hours long. That's what that's the time that they ask you to kind of budget for that Saturday. But in reality, it wasn't 8 hours. For my son, it was about 6 hours. It depends on the number of participants that are registered for Saturday. The cost, they ask for a deposit. It's a hold on a credit card in case the teen doesn't show up, because they want to cover the expenses of not having that kid there, and also they provide them with a t-shirt. But I'm not sure what is the actual cost. I know that these certified law enforcement officers, they are part of the the Florida Sheriff's Association. So I am not sure what is the actual cost for the agency. That's
Okay.
not
All right,
the
thank you.
information we have.
Thank you. Caution? I'll get to the side in a second. Caution, can you speak into the microphone, please?
I think this is fantastic. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is fantastic. I mean, when I got a driver's license, you had to take these courses. You just couldn't get it. And I noticed that 16% are due to reckless driving. That means the other roughly 85% are just mistakes. How many accidents have we gotten out of just due to muscle memory? You know, somebody swerved in front of us and somehow we moved the car around and pulled out of it and kept going and went, wow. That if we didn't have practice, we wouldn't know. And I'm shocked at how many parents drive their 15-year-old kids to school every day because they don't feel comfortable letting their kid drive. And then when they turn 16 and get a license, they hand them the keys and let the kids go off, and they've had like no practice while they had the learner's permit. So I don't know if there's a way to, increase awareness that, you're killing your kid if you're not letting them drive while you're sitting in my guess is the number of accidents when a parent's sitting in is very low, but I'd be curious at that. But I think I was particularly impressed when I saw them skid, because a huge amount of kids die because of flipping a car when they put it into a skid. So anyway, thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you, Caution. Anyone on this side?
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you. Yes, I also have a son that took the course, and the only thing he was able to describe for me was that skid control exercise. So I think it was really valuable. I will say on a personal note, I made him take his driver test in the largest vehicle we could get a hold of. Because I feel like if you can navigate that with some retired law enforcement officer, tester in the car with you during a test, that hopefully it will be impressionable. And it was. So anyway, thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Anyone else? Sir?
So I remember they posted this video on Instagram maybe about a year or so ago, or I think they've had maybe 2 or 3 of these sessions. Kind of going along with Mayor Deming said, is there a need to assist them with funding this? Because by the time I reached out, it was full, but they didn't have like a wait list or, hey, we're going to have these many more courses. And so just wondering what ability we can do either through this body or other ways to be able to increase the frequency of these courses. I think they're good. I think they're enjoyable for the kids once they get there. And so just allowing that, especially with the law change. And so could you comment on that?
Yes, we can try to reach out to the Sheriff's Association and find some information about funding opportunities. They usually have a list of dates available, some of the counties, and information on which dates they have openings, but we definitely can try to find more information about it. Now, quickly to your point, this is part of the efforts to raise awareness. And this guide actually has a log for parents to log the practice hours that the kids are supposed to have before they get their actual license with the learner's permit, and all the requirements are here. So this is again being mailed to every parent once the teenager gets the learner's permit. And that's part of the efforts that the FDOT Safe Driving, Teen Safe Driving Coalition is taking on. But definitely awareness is needed. And also the availability of these type of programs so parents can decide to register their kids.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Safety moment. Before we move on, I just want to go back and recognize Commissioner Lee Constantine again for his Lifetime Achievement Award from the Florida Association of Counties. It's the Marlene Young Award. It's an award that, as I said earlier, is not presented every year. And I believe over the history of them presenting this award, you're the 3rd recipient. So I want to congratulate you again, Commissioner, for job well done. Okay, at this time, move on to the Executive Director, Gary Hutman. Mr. Hutman.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Delary and board members. Congratulations, Commissioner Constantine. This morning we have Mr. Good here representing GOA in place of Tim Weishire, and he'll be participating in a presentation later on the agenda. I've talked about our work with the national organizations, AMPO and NARC. And the latest on that is as we're trying to influence the reauthorization that they're working on in Washington, D.C. right now, because the current federal bill expires next year. And some of the big items that we're looking at that impact MPOs as well as local governments have to do with establishing a pilot program on the reasonableness of MPOs being direct recipients of capital program, what we refer to as our SU dollars. We're also working with members of congressional staff on language to increase the federal planning dollars that come to MPOs and that help us support our partners with the work that we do. And then the final thing is strengthening project selection and the transparency in selecting those projects. So I'll keep you updated as I have more information on that. Regarding our Safe Streets grant, we received notice on June 16th that funds from our second Safe Streets grant will be released soon. In fact, then just a reminder, that's a grant of $2.1 million to further the work that we did with the first grant. We have sent out interlocal agreements because we'll be entering into those with Seminole County and with the city of Castleberry. So those have gone out. And as well as the funding agreement to the Federal Highway Administration. So we're busy working on that. And with this grant, once it's executed, the clock starts and it's a 24-month window to complete that work. I also want to let you know that our Vision Zero Central Florida initiative that you've heard so much about is being recognized by the State Planning Association. We received an award by the Metro section already, but it will be presented, and the award is for excellence in the best practices category. The work that we did in safety and all of the safety action plans is really receiving a lot of positive attention. So congratulations to Alex and the entire planning team on that work. Last month, I mentioned to the board that the preview that you were hearing on the Transportation Improvement Program and that what you would hear this morning when we asked for your adoption would be different versions of essentially the same document. And I was wrong on that. I said I hoped that I would be wrong. And I am, but for different reasons. And that's that DOT has not yet determined what the impact of the budget has on the work program. And so they're still looking at that. I was told last Thursday that it may be October before we have that information. So what you'll be doing this morning is approving the TIP as it's presented, but understand that later this year we'll be balancing that out and doing some amendments to it to make it more accurate. Now I want to talk about a peer exchange. The Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco MPOs were the three MPOs that several legislative sessions ago were required to do a study to consider consolidating and merging those three MPOs into one, much like MetroPlan Orlando. Our staff has spent a good amount of time with some of them. Hillsborough staff came over and spent a day with us last year, I believe it was. But I'm now working with the executive director of Forward Pinellas, and they have all three of their boards want to plan a day over here. It would be a full day for them, but we're probably looking at a window of time of about 10 to 2. And they're interested in having some one-on-one time with MetroPlan Orlando board members. They're struggling with how we do our jobs in a regional organization when you cross county boundaries. It's just new to them, and they've never done it. And when they talk with us, it's all we know. It's the only way we've ever done it. So it should be an interesting day. I received word yesterday that the best day for them is October 27th. That's a Monday. An alternative day for them is the 28th, but they do lose a couple of members by moving it to the 28th. So I would like to have a good showing. I think they're actually getting sponsored by the Tampa Bay Partnership to come over and spend that day. So it's very important to them. I hope that it will fit on many of your calendars to be here. They anticipate that the group may be 25 or more, probably 8 electeds from each of the 3 MPOs, it sounds like, as well as some staff members, potentially some committee members. So it's it would be very positive for us to make that trip a success for them. So I wanted to mention that. And your supplemental folders this morning include 3 items that I want to draw your attention to. The first is a snapshot.
Eric, before we move on,
Yes.
is there any objection to that date? I know no people may not have their access to their calendar right now, but is there anything glaring that we need to be aware of? We're going to get there. Okay. Seeing that, Gary, if you could just send that out with a synopsis of what not just the time, but the categories you think they might want to cover.
Yes, okay, we'll do
Okay,
that.
thank you.
The supplemental folders include a snapshot of the county level funding that's included in the TIP. I've talked with several of you about this already and provided this same information to you, but it's included in the supplemental folders for everyone this morning. The second item is a summary report that's generated from our TIP public comment period. And then finally, I include a copy of the Orange County resolution for support of the Lake to Lake Regional Trail that's on the agenda this morning. The Seminole County resolution and the Osceola County resolution are included in the board packets. Onto the agenda, this morning we'll hear from the executive airport, Mr. Good, as well as Ms. Judith Ann Jarrett will be presenting that item for the agency report. And so with that, Chairman, completes my comments and the agenda reading.
Chairman, I
Yes,
did,
Commissioner.
Gary, I just want to notate the 28th is a Board of County Commission meeting, so we would be out. So the 27th so far works for me. So just wanted to
We're going to try to do it on Monday, the 27th,
Yeah.
if there's no objection.
Well, I will get that out to them immediately after the meeting and tell them that, you know, the 27th looks like we can work with that. But
Great,
Right.
okay. Any other comments for Mr. Hutman? Okay, and we'll move on to agency reports. We're gonna have GOA, the Orlando Executive Airport. Mr. Good, like to tee it up?
Hello, good morning.
good morning.
Judith, I guess I'll stand over here.
That's a long way to get there.
I was just thinking,
So, Mr. Good, you're trying to get your steps in? Is that what you're trying to do? Can we turn that microphone on? Okay, there we
As
go.
many of you know, I've served on this board for 7 years, almost going on 7 years. I came on
Sorry.
by virtue of being on the GOA board. I came on about the same time as Mayor Demings, I think about 60, 90 days later. We've had an interesting journey. This has been a great board to have served on. And we all talk a lot about the international airport, which Chairman Weishire is going to give a report on, I think, in a month or two. I stepped down as chairman about a year ago, didn't run for reelection. I wanted to focus on a few of the things that I'm most excited about at GOA. And one of them was the executive airport, which hasn't gotten the attention. I think they've used the word redheaded stepchild, which I didn't like, but at GOA. But it hasn't gotten the focus, and Chairman Weishire was the chairman of the executive airport before me, and he really started focusing a lot on trying to move it forward. So we appreciate the opportunity to tell everybody a little about our executive airport, how we're trying to carve a niche, as Sean has with his airport and as Sanford is with their airport, so we can be synergistic more than competitive, and we can serve the community in a very exciting way. Judith Ann has been the executive director of the executive airport for how many years?
3 years, 4.
4 years. Has done just a super job. So I'm going to introduce her and let her do the vast majority of this. It's a big airport. It sits on 1,000 acres right downtown, right on all the expressway systems, a short run to Cape Canaveral, where we hope one day the 408 is going to get properly expanded, and which helps the airport, Cape Canaveral, and everybody. But we've thought a lot about, Judith, why don't you get started? Because
Sure.
I'll interject.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, Mayor, and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Again, Judith Ann Jarrett. I am the airport director at Orlando Executive Airport. Orlando's first airport, established in 1928. It was also Central Florida's first commercial airport. It now ranks among the nation's busiest general aviation hubs, surpassing many commercial airports in the state of Florida.
Yeah, I think we've got more traffic than Jacksonville International Airport, more traffic than Palm Beach Airport.
That's
International.
correct. That's
Right.
correct, sir.
Cool.
As Carson mentioned, we have, he chairs the ORL Advisory Commission, and the commission's role is to offer expert guidance and insights to support the Aviation Authority's strategic decision-making. And that helps us optimize our operational performance and our fiscal outcomes. Here are some quick facts. Since 2007, ORL has welcomed international arrivals, and we're seeing about 1,200 of them a year. As Carson mentioned, we surpass many commercial service airports. We're the 13th busiest in the state of Florida, ranked by operations. We have 268 based aircraft, many of which are multi-engine or jet, about 35% of those multi-engines and jets. We see a mix of operations. We have workforce developments through our flight schools. We have a lot of business traffic happening through our charter operators. Our fixed base operators offer concierge services to anybody passing through Executive Airport. They also offer aircraft storage, parking, and maintenance for aircraft at the airport. We have 2 asphalt runways, although because of airspace limitations with MCO being only 6 miles away from us, we pretty much do about 95% of our operations on 1 runway. And just a fun fact, we do about half of the operations MCO does, and they have 4 runways. So we are very busy. We have an FAA ATC tower, and that sets us apart from most general aviation airports, many of which don't even have a control tower, but ours is manned by the FAA. As the FAA designated primary reliever for MCO, because I acknowledge that our partners in Kissimmee also serve in that role, and we appreciate that. But ORL alleviates congestion by diverting general and corporate aviation traffic, freeing up MCOs, runways, and their airspace for commercial flights. ORL has seen double-digit growth year over year in traffic, reinforcing our role as a GA hub. So the next slide is gonna.
Stay on this just a second. Go ahead.
No.
When you finish this.
I'm finished on this slide.
Okay. So mission, I think, is the part that I particularly wanted to focus a lot on.
Do you need-
Huh?
Do you need?
Mission is what I wanted to focus a bit on, and we always try to think out what our mission is. And Sean, you did a phenomenal job of talking about your mission. Our number one mission is to relieve MCO. And, you know, we've gone from, just since Mayor Demings and I have been on the board, we've had a 20% increase in traffic. Our total capacity, we think, is somewhere around 100 million passengers, maybe 110. We're at 60 million now. We were at 50 million a few years ago when we first got on the board. So one day in the not too distant future, we will reach capacity at the Orlando International Airport. So relieving and getting those, when I call them small planes, some of these are big private jets, migrating them over to Sean's airport, our airport, Sanford, and keeping that runway capacity at the international airport is a very important primary reason. Secondary, it's we really see it as an economic driver. There are not very many executive airports in the country that are right next to downtown, right next to executive housing with great road system. If you live in Miami, you're going a long way to either Opelika Airport or to Tamiami Airport. Here, you could move your business to Orlando if you use the executive jets a lot. You could live in Baldwin Park. You could ride your bicycle to your airplane. You could work downtown. You could put your office out on Colonial Drive. And it is a great attractor that we want to use more to attract small businesses. And by small businesses, it's $50 to $100 million nowadays as a small business. So we see that as a great purpose for our airport. And another thing to keep in mind, and I think Sean sees some of this at his airport, is whenever somebody comes in, I talked to Jim Gray about this, when CBRE is trying to relocate a major corporation to move a regional headquarters to Orlando, guess where all those people fly into? They fly in with their executive jets to Executive Airport, and it's their first impression of Orlando when they're thinking of moving a regional headquarters here. So we also want to kind of try to beautify it a little bit, which we've always worked on in the international airport. But I think those are the three major purposes. And we want to utilize this development to try to keep bringing major corporations that have executive jets to our community. Right.
Thanks.
That was on that.
Thank you. And just to put some numbers to what Carson just spoke about, the economic impact of 577 million. These numbers came from an FDOT statewide study that was conducted in 2022. So they'll be starting this year, later this year, another study. So we look forward to seeing what those numbers are for this year. But 186 million in payroll, over 4,000 jobs. And again, as Carson mentioned, the location of ORL, we can't overemphasize that enough. 3 miles to downtown, and as you said, sir, just a prime location for everything you need to do. So close to the urban core, you're within our urban core. We also have strategically located parcels that are available at ORL, and that presents a powerful draw for further investment and development. ORL aligns with MetroPlan Orlando. We share the same priorities, ensuring that every initiative supports secure, dependable transportation network for our users. We create seamless links through communities, jobs, and services. We leverage our infrastructure to connect people, businesses, and places as part of a diverse transportation network. And we host our community regularly at multiple airport events throughout the year. Our FBOs, or fixed base operators, continue to make substantial investments at ORL. Atlantic Aviation and Shelter have collectively added, just in the last couple of years, 100,000 square feet of premium corporate hangar space. And next year, a third FBO will break ground on a brand new $30 million facility, adding another 150,000 square feet of hangar space. You can see our partners are investing in larger scale corporate developments to capitalize on the growing trend of increasing business traffic at ORL. I'm not sure you were all aware, so I put this slide up just to emphasize that although we are part of the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority, ORL is fully independent, and we don't receive any financial support from MCO or from local taxes or local tax revenue. So all of our airport expenses are funded through ORL revenues, and those come from our aeronautical properties and our non-aeronautical properties. And the majority of the revenue comes from the non-aeronautical side. This slide shows you some of the capital improvement projects that we have lined up over the next 5 years. So on our airfield, $82 million of investment that we'll put to rehabilitate runways, taxiways, and ramps. The runway project, our main runway, is going to be wrapping up construction this time next year. So that's a major project, and we are also doing some ramp work. We'll be making sure that we're ready for the future and the growth that this area is seeing by investing in increasing electrical capacity in our stormwater systems, roadway rehabilitation. And as Carson mentioned, airport beautification is high on our list as well. We want to align with the City of Orlando's beautification initiatives and to elevate the airport's public image. I'd like to highlight a few pressing operational challenges that we face right now. So rising infrastructure costs are placing an increasing strain on our budget, on everybody's budget, and essential maintenance and upgrades are necessary to ensure safety and regulatory compliance. Aviation traffic, depending on the studies you look at, are projected to grow by about 2.5% annually. And without targeted investments in our airport, especially for ORL enhancing our runway capacity, ORL will face serious operational bottlenecks. And then lastly, to kind of round it all out, the FAA's grant assurance mandate requires that airports be as financially self-sufficient as possible, meaning, as I said earlier, ORL covers operating costs through its own revenue streams. And what that does is minimize our dependence on competitive external grants. We're about midway through a comprehensive airport master plan update. And this will guide our long-term decision-making, setting a strategic roadmap for us for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So this vital planning process will identify infrastructure enhancements to meet projected demand, such as extending a runway or adjusting some of the taxiway alignments, and then potentially new facilities that we'll need to put in place as we plan for the future aviation needs of Central Florida. Now, I love this slide because this is something near and dear to my heart. One of our key strategic priorities is community. And ORL truly shines as a community partner. We host a wide array of public events throughout the year. Every month, Orange County Public Library holds children's story time at the airport, bringing families, books, and aviation together. Our food truck fly-ins feature a rotating lineup of food trucks, static displays, aircraft displays, creating a festive atmosphere. ORL is proud to host the International Girls in Aviation Day, empowering young women in STEM with hands-on aircraft tours, career talks, and meet and greets. This year's inaugural Pack the Plane, which is bottom center, brought our community to ORL in support of the Second Harvest Food Bank. With aircraft displays, therapy dogs, firefighting demos, food trucks, and we collected nearly 3,000 pounds of donated food. And on the bottom left, earlier this year, ORL hosted the 13th annual Run for the Angels 5K. More than 700 runners and walkers took to the taxiways, runways, and hangar areas for this event. And all proceeds benefit Angel Flight Southeast, which is an impressive group of about 650 volunteer pilots who donate their own aircraft, their fuel, and their time to provide free air transportation to medical facilities for individuals in financial need or who don't have easy access to public transit. Again, I think Carson really summed up very well how we have a pivotal role, not only in the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority, but also in the region, fostering the dynamic aviation environment that he described, attractive development opportunities, and a powerful catalyst for regional business and economic growth. I always like to close with a fun fact. So both ORL and MCO have apiaries. In 2018, GOA launched this Airport Apiary Initiative. And today it's actually one of the largest in the country with over 400 hives across multiple sites on both of our airports. And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board? Yes, Kelly, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, it's all right.
Question. Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. It was really informative. With the Orlando airport, so I was doing some research, and obviously we have a great tourism economy, right? But what are the taxing opportunities at the airport? Because the corporate business traveler that you're talking about comes in with a much larger wallet than what some of the leisure travelers would come in with. So what are the taxing opportunities that we can use with the airport to help push community impact projects in that area? I saw it's part of like it's part of a federal program, Opportunity Zone program on the website. Do you know what are the opportunities that we can use that Opportunity Zone to generate revenue, to support necessary infrastructure that benefits both the arrivals as well as the community?
To a limited degree. And Carson, feel free if you'd rather take this, but I can share my limited degree. That is a program that's managed by our real estate department, housed at MCO. But these zones are established to make it easier for businesses to come into our area and operate and get established.
So then with the recent state legislation that passed that impacted corporate leases and alleviating that expense for them, how does that impact then the financing and the potential income that would come in?
That would be more a question for our real estate folks.
Okay, so if we
I can give you a little bit of insight. So first, the opportunity zone, which it isn't in a federal opportunity zone. as far as I know, it gives federal income tax relief for anyone who builds in an opportunity zone. It doesn't create, that alone, to my knowledge, doesn't create any ability or disability for the county and the municipality to tax.
So why, as local leaders then, should we support something that doesn't economically contribute to improved infrastructure in the area?
Well, you don't, then you cannot support it. That's up to
No,
the
I mean,
county to do.
like, what, you must have info behind,
So
like, why?
what I know about opportunity zones, which is somewhat limited, is they're set up, they're federally mandated, created by Congress to encourage people to build in what is generally blighted areas. At least that was the intent. These are not, one opportunity zone, for instance, is Lee Road in 1792 in Winter Park, where Ravatage is. And it somehow got looped into the opportunity zone by Congress. But generally, opportunity zones, the only advantage of opportunity zones is they allow income tax benefits. I think that doesn't change the county's ability to tax real estate, sales tax, or whatever. And anybody else knows more about it than I do, but we haven't had anybody at the airport jumping on the ability to build something because it's in our opportunity zone.
So Carson, can we give, to get the proper information to the commissioner, can we get her information? So that she can be more informed?
Yes.
And have better dialogue with your group? Is that okay, Commissioner?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner.
Anyone else? Commissioner?
Just a question for a non-aeronautical person. What is, when you said the revenue side, that there's more revenue from the non-aeronautical, what does that mean?
So the aeronautical side refers to all of those operations close around the runways and taxiways that are directly tied to moving people or planes or cargo.
Gasoline sales, rent that we get from the FBOs, rent that we get from the airport mechanics.
That's correct. And I think I have actually, I don't have.
Non-aeronautical would be the old public shopping center or the Wawa that we have on a land lease.
Yeah, and the FAA encourages airports to also have non-aeronautical properties within their boundaries. And the reason is because we are able to charge substantially higher amounts of rents for our commercial, think of it as commercial property. Commercial properties, you can get higher rents from our commercial properties. And what that does is help us keep the aeronautical rent that we charge for people operating the aircraft and so on, keep that lower so that we can encourage aviation to grow and we can support it and so on. So, today, depending on what area you're looking at, for example, Colonial Promenade is one of our properties, and we're working on that one right now. We're excited about the future of that. But the rent we can get per square foot on Colonial Promenade compared to one of the fixed base operators on the, next to a ramp, it's about fourfold more. So we want to make sure that we develop all the available commercial land that we have. That's what makes us so attractive for business development. We have a lot of space. We can do a lot of things. That'll give us more revenue so that we can keep the aviation costs lower so that aviation can continue to thrive.
However, there is somewhat debate on our executive board, and a lot of us would like to see the focus be not on another Wawa, but on something that corporate relocation that like Red 6 that we got in, a corporate relocation where somebody can bring in a regional headquarters and put it right there on Colonial Drive and have an airplane, couple jets in the back. So we'd rather fill up that frontage if we can.
So, and I mean, once again, I was kind of looking at the map, so that all that frontage.
We have miles, how many, a mile and a half of frontage?
Oh, yes, it's from like Linda's Cantina.
Yeah,
Familiar with
yeah.
that, all the way down to McGuire. We have a public storage at the corner of Colonial and McGuire.
Wow, I learned so
And-
much from this presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And a little bit beyond that.
Most of it's committed for the next 20, 30 years. We only have a small amount of that frontage that's not.
Due to time, I'm gonna have to cut this short. It's all right. Due to time, I'm gonna have to cut this short, but I want to thank you for educating us
Commissioner, I did have one question.
Yes,
if you don't mind.
Commissioner, we can make it quick.
Sure. So when you talk about capacity and expanding the runway, like what is the largest aircraft that you can land there at the airport?
Our longer runway is 6,004 feet. We can land a Boeing 737, so Southwest could land there.
Thank you.
This was the international airport until we moved it 25 years ago.
Go figure.
Copy that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that update.
That's great.
Thank you, Carlson. At this time, we're going to move to FDOT Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members. It's great to be here again. Commissioner Constantine, once again, congratulations on your Lifetime Achievement Award. Personally want to thank you for all your partnership with FDOT. I can personally attest to the partnership that we've had together, but also with my predecessors going all the way back to Naran Downs and even before her. You've been a stalwart champion of transportation and really do appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you for that. A couple things that I'd like to touch on today, if you don't mind. 2025 legislative session certainly wrapped up, and we completed that and got the budget signed as well on the last day of the fiscal year. It was just in time. So that budget for FDOT includes a $15.1 billion budget for FDOT, $13.7 billion specifically for our work program. Those numbers are largely representative of what we submitted and presented in our public hearing late last year. But there are some slight adjustments. There's some slight adjustments to revenues for transportation coming from dock stamps, as well as there were member projects that were included in that budget. So, there are some tweaks that we need to take a look at. So the governor signed the bill last week, including all the vetoes, and we're, exploring what adjustments we need to make to the current fiscal year that we're in, fiscal year 26. That's our first priority, is making sure that we can balance the work program based on those adjustments. And then we'll get to work on building the next work program, which is just right around the corner, because the legislative session, our next session, is going to be an early session. It'll be in January. So that moves up the work program clock. The public hearing all gets moved up 2 months earlier than it was last year. So we're going to have a lot of work to do, which is one of the reasons that Director Huttman mentioned. It's going to be October before we really understand the long-term impacts to the outer years. But we will be coming back for more information on that. So we're off like a rocket right here at the beginning of the fiscal year and moving ahead. A couple of weeks ago, over in France at the Paris Air Show, Governor DeSantis signed Senate Bill 1662, which is FDOT's priority policy bill, and it implemented extensive updates across the full spectrum of the transportation space. Two particular efforts, that I'd like to touch on today that most folks, may not have heard of, because these were just ideas that Secretary Perdue presented and championed in our policy bill, and he talked about it at several occasions throughout committee meetings through the session, and they did make it into the final bill, and we're very pleased to see that. The first is the Florida Transportation Research Institute, which will create an epicenter for Florida universities and aerospace industries to conduct value research and innovation. And it's going to be led right here at the University of Central Florida. So right here in our backyard, the University of Central Florida, as well as some others, University of Florida, USF, FIU, Indian River State College will also be playing prominent roles, but the administrative lead will be the University of Central Florida. So that's going to be very exciting to see get going. And the second is the Florida Transportation Academy. And the purpose of this academy is to help educate and train the next generation of our transportation workforce, not just at DOT, but in all of our industry partners, as well as your transportation workforce as well. So we're going to be working with universities, other state agencies, veterans organizations, as well as industry groups within the transportation industry to get this program going and off the ground. So both of these were just mere ideas at the beginning of this calendar year when we presented them to the legislature, and now we have the authorization to start bringing them to life. So that's really exciting. The executive team at FDOT is really excited about this. We believe that it has the opportunity to make a generational, transformation to not just FDOT, but to transportation in this state. So really appreciate Secretary Perdue's leadership on bringing those forward. As I mentioned, it's been a busy begin to the fiscal year already. Last week, we were able to fully execute US DOT's infra grant for the Central Florida Truck Parking Project. We executed that on July the 2nd for $180 million coming to Central Florida to fully fund the construction of 4 of those truck parking sites. And so just to put this in perspective, this grant, like with many others around the country, had been put on hold, pending further review by US DOT. But Secretary Perdue has had an opportunity on multiple occasions to meet with Secretary Duffy, to talk about things that are important to the state of Florida. This was one that was consistently on the list. We got a call. US DOT was ready to unfreeze it and get it fully executed. The goal was in less than a week. Unfortunately, it took us less than 2 weeks, but we got it done. We got it executed on July the 2nd. It did require the support and assistance from MetroPlan Orlando. So we did need to get an emergency addendum to the TIP process. So I worked with, or my staff worked with Gary, the executive director. I called Chairman Delary and let him know that we had this opportunity and how we could go ahead and take advantage of it. And so we were able to get that fully executed on July the 2nd. So that means we are under contract. We had always planned to deliver these projects, but if we didn't have that federal money, it wasn't going to happen. And now it is a certainty. This federal government has signed the contract, for us to receive those funds. So we're going to be, moving ahead. So the Seminole and Volusia County sites, we plan to let those in the spring of next year, with the Osceola site in early 2027. And Commissioner Arrington, I know that you still have some questions and things that we need to talk through on the Osceola County site. We will still do that. Commissioner Constantine, Chairman Delary, I know we still have some issues that we need to walk through and talk about for the Seminole County site, but we will get those issues resolved, and we are excited to see the relief coming to Central Florida. These 4 sites will bring 917 spaces to Central Florida that we do not have today. So relief is on the horizon, and very excited to see that move ahead. And then the final thing, I always like to close with safety. Next week will be Operation Southern Slowdown. This is an annual week-long speed enforcement and education campaign that takes place across 5 southern states: Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and right here in the state of Florida. We're going to kick off the week with a series of press conferences across these 5 states, as well as multiple right here in the state of Florida. The Central Florida kickoff event is going to be on Monday morning over at Daytona International Speedway. It will include many of the local law enforcement partners here in this area, as well as FHP. There's going to be lots of social media next week from these law enforcement partners and FHP. I would encourage you to maybe use your social media assets and your network, back within your communities to share this message of what we're doing and what we're trying to get people to do, back home. So we're really looking forward to that as well. So a lot of great things going on. I went to a conference a couple of weeks ago, and the keynote speaker said something very profound that I really think is very true. He said, times have never been busier than they are right now, and they're never going to be slower. And that's how we feel in transportation. We've got plenty to do. We're excited to do it, and we're ready to keep doing it. I'll take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Constantine?
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for the kind words, but also thank you very much for the parking. I know that Commissioner Delary and I, many, many years ago, with you and Jared Perdue and everybody, met with those folks over there at in Longwood at those 2 rest stops that have become truck stops, essentially, and told you of the problem, that it's been going since the 90s. So the one question I have is, you had 900 spaces. You said 900 plus spaces. Every one of their research and surveys has said that I-4 by far is woefully underserved, even compared to 95 and 75. When you get these 900 online, where's that going to put us as far as, where we should be?
That's a great question, Commissioner. We will be able to meet the goal that that we identified in our analysis. Now, this analysis was done probably going on 3.5 years ago. So, there's been more development. There's been more distribution centers. There's been more, truck parking coming in or trucking coming in. But we believe that we will get extremely close to the goal that we have. We're still committed to finishing that 5th site, which will be in Orange County as well, because it's going to continue to grow as we move forward in time. But we do feel that we're going to get very close, if not meet, the goal that we set for trying to bring relief to Central Florida with these 917 spaces.
Anyone else? Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This time we move on to the roll call. The quorum.
Good morning. And Mr. Chair, for the record, we have joining us virtually Mayor Pat Bates from the city of Altamont, Mayor Buddy Dyer from the city of Orlando, Mayor Woodruff from the city of Sanford, and Commissioner Tony Ortiz from the city of Orlando. And Mayor Jackie Espinosa is on the attendee side. So,
Welcome to all.
thank you. Arrington, Bates. Here. Constantine. Here. Gomez Cordero.
Here.
Delari.
Here.
Demmings.
Here.
Dyer.
Here.
Espinosa. Gilbert.
Here.
Grebe. Janer.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Simrad.
Here.
Commissioner Jordan Smith.
Here.
Mr. Stephen Smith. Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Uribe.
Present.
Mr. Good for Wise Hire.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Woodruff.
Here.
That concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum physically present.
Thank you. This time we go to committee reports. First committee report would be the Municipal Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. So the Municipal Advisory Committee met on June 26th. We approved 2 action items. The first one was the fiscal year 25-26 to 30-31 tip, and the fiscal year 31 to fiscal year 31 to 41 prioritized project list. In addition, we had 1 presentation on the 2050 MTP update with great discussion and feedback, which was provided to MetroPlan staff. That is the report.
Thank you. Any questions? Any hands raised online, Lisa?
We do not have any.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to the Community Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I am Lisa Thompson, representing for the Community Advisory Committee. At its June 25th meeting, the CAC welcomed new members from Seminole County. The committee recommended approval of the draft Transportation Improvement Program and prioritized project list. Community members continue to question the amount of funding for the road projects compared to active transportation and transit projects contained in the plans. Committee members expressed a desire to see more funding balance in the future plans. The committee also heard a presentation on funding for the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Our next CAC meeting will be August 27th, and this concludes my report for the CAC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions in person? Lisa, anyone have their hands raised? Okay, thank you. Move on to the Technical Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Chair and board members. I'm Lenny Barden, Chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. Our committee met recently on June 27th in person with the physical quorum. All action items presented at our meeting were unanimously approved or recommended for your approval, including the approval of our May 30th, 2025 meeting minutes, approval of the TIP for fiscal years 25-26 through fiscal years 29 to 2030, and approval of the annual update of the prioritized project list. There were no common presentations shared with the TISMO Advisory Committee. However, TAC had 2 committee-specific presentations, a status update on the 2050 MTP, and a roundtable discussion regarding the Florida Department of Transportation Advanced Air Mobility Workshops. This session generated insightful conversations on practicality, safety considerations, operational feasibility, and the challenges to address in making advanced air mobility a viable transportation alternative. There were no public comments received during our meeting, and our next meeting is scheduled for August 22nd, 2025 at 10 a.m. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions in person? Lisa, any hands raised? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the Transportation System Management and Operation Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Eric Hill. I'm MetroPlan Orlando staff to TSMO. Neither our chair, E. Pullum, or our vice chair, Christina Colon, could be with us this morning. So I'm providing you with a brief report. We met on June the 27th, and we approved 3 action items. One was our May 30th meeting minutes. We also approved the FY 26, FY 30 Transportation Improvement Program, as well as the update to the prioritized project list. We have one presentation that was on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and our next meeting is on August 22nd. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you, Eric. Anyone in person have a question? Lisa, anyone have their hands raised? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the public comments for action items only. Do we have any written requests?
I have not received any.
Okay. Anyone in the audience that'd like to speak to the board on an action item? Seeing none, we'll move on. Move on to consent agenda. List of consent agenda items A through E. Direction.
Motion to approve, Jana. Second, Moore.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to action items. The first action item A will be presented by MetroPlan staff.
Morning, Chairman and board members. This morning I'll be presenting the fiscal year 2026, fiscal year 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, draft for adoption, and you'll find some additional information in section 2 of your agenda packets. As everyone in this room knows, the purpose of the TIP is to identify all federal and state funded transportation projects in the region over the next 5 years, and the TIP is updated on an annual basis, with the 5th year of funding being consistent with the adopted prioritized project list, which was adopted in July of 2024. And within the TIP this year, we have a total of 555 projects with approximately $11.7 billion in funding. The TIP is broken down into several sections, with all projects being sorted into the 11 sections on the left side of the screen. And the TIP also includes an abbreviation and acronyms guide, as well as a systems performance report, which is updated annually. And as you can see, this year we have a lot of projects going on in the region. We have a total of 271 federal, state, and turnpike funded projects, with approximately $5.5 billion in funding programs. This does not include the $1.3 billion in local funds that our partner agencies contribute to projects. And this also does not include the projects submitted by partner agencies for informational purposes only. And the pie graph breaks this down by the 11 sections of the TIP. And it should be noted, as you can see, I-4 makes up 49% of the pie chart. This includes $2 billion in discretionary funding that we received as part of the governor's Moving Florida Forward initiative. Within the TIP, we have a total of 39 projects that are prioritized and funded using MetroPlan Orlando Transportation Management Agency, or TMA funding. This comes to approximately $145 million in funding over the next 5 years. This does not include the $31 million in TMA funds for 3 state highway system projects, which were applied in order to help the state balance the work program. And the table displayed breaks this down by project type. So we have complete streets, bicycle and pedestrian, transit capital, and TSMO projects. So since the last time I came in front of you, we do have some changes to the TIP. We had some projects that were added for planning consistency. So we received the Central Florida Expressway Authority 5-year work plan, which added approximately 168 projects It's about 4.5 billion in funding. And also we received 4 additional partner-funded projects. And it should be noted that both of those sections are for informational purposes only within the TIP. In addition, we had some typographical edits that were brought to our attention by our partner agencies, and we went ahead and addressed those. And additionally, as the secretary mentioned earlier, we did receive that grant funding for the truck stops. So we went ahead and added those funds into the TIP as well. At your seat, you should have received a summary of public comments we received. We received feedback regarding Sunrail, funding for the Shingle Creek Trail, signage for slower drivers to move over, and regarding the convenience of Lynx transportation services for senior citizens. Additionally, we did receive several comments regarding prioritizing and advancing projects along Mitchell Hammock Road in Oviedo. We also received the suggestion to conduct a study on the feasibility of light rail running in the Mitchell Hammock Road Central Median. This year, we hosted 3 virtual Ask a Planner sessions, as well as the TIP open house at the Seminole County Public Library Oviedo branch. We received some great public feedback through these events. Some of the feedback included the need for State Road 50 widening project in East Orange County. There's a real desire to reduce traffic congestion through increased public transportation, both through the expansion of Sunrail locally as well as Brightline to Tampa. There's a desire for safety for all users, specifically new drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians. And there should be wider sidewalks on Mitchell Hammock Road in Oviedo. As I mentioned earlier, you have some additional information located in section 2 of your agenda packets. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we're asking for your recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Great. Questions in person?
Motion to approve, Dana.
Your motion is second. Any questions online, Lisa?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Call the roll, please.
Arrington. Bates.
Yes.
Constantine.
Yes.
Gomez Cordero.
Yes.
Delari.
Yes.
Demmings.
Yes.
Dyer.
Yes.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Reed. Janer.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Simrad. Smith.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Uribe.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Woodruff.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This time move to the approval of the 2031, 2041 priority project list. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name is Slade Downs, member of staff, and I'll be walking you through the final update for this year's prioritized project list for adoption. So, quick background refresher. So, 3 of our core plans here at MetroPlan Orlando. We've got our MTP, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is our 25-year plan, all of the long-term visioning scenarios. We have the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, which Jason just touched on. It's the 5 years of upcoming projects with funding attached to those projects and project phases. The PPL is like a bridge between those 2 plans. So it covers the 10 years following the TIP. It's currently unfunded projects and project phases, but it's kind of like the on deck circle of, okay, this is what's coming up based on our cost estimates, our cost forecasts. Let's make sure that we've got our ducks in a row and our resources in place. So when that money becomes available, can hit the ground running with those projects. So at our last meeting, brought the preview version to you and asked for feedback from all of you as well as the advisory committees. We were able to incorporate that feedback. very minor cost estimates, very adjustments, minor project limit revisions. But long and the short of it is there were no changes to project rankings since that project prioritization process is established by your board policy. There was one project segmentation request in the city of Winter Park that was brought up and approved at the Technical Advisory Committee and the TISMO Advisory Committee. So with that, keeping it short this morning, I'm asking for approval of the PPL as it has been presented. Happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board in person?
Motion to approve, Jane.
We have motion and second. Lisa, any questions online?
There are no hands.
Okay, this is not a roll call vote, so I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to the informational items for acknowledgement. We need to have a either a motion or discussion about item number 10, which is A through K. Motion for acceptance.
Second more.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to other business presentations. We'll now move on to the 2050 MPT update.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Laurent, and I'll be providing an update on our 2050 MTP and really presenting the recommendations for the 2050 MTP funding policy that we've collectively been developing and discussing so far this year. There are detailed handouts in your agenda packets about this information included in section 5. There are individual one-pagers looking at each of these second draft scenarios that were included. This would be in your agenda packet that was provided online and is included on your tables if you want to look at it now. There are also comparative summary tables that are able to look at all 4 of the second draft funding scenarios in one spot. So you can look at them by funding allocation, how they differ between each other, and also by scenario outputs, what we are estimating to be the outcomes of each of these different items. So these second draft funding scenarios were developed based on the feedback that we received directly from you and our advisory committees over the past several months, starting with our conversation that we had back at that April MTP workshop. Now, as you reviewed these scenarios, or if you're looking at them now, you'll see that they are fairly similar with very minute differences between them. That is because we've covered a lot of ground together over the past several months and built consensus on large topics within this funding policy. And these last 4 scenarios that we're looking at have been curated to help us look through the very few remaining details to get those buttoned up to look at what our recommended policy will be for the 2050 plan. Now, as a very brief refresher from our funding discussion last month, there are 4 different buckets of funds that are included within the 2050 MTP. Those federal and state funds that can only be used on the state highway system, the other roadway funds, federal funds for MPO priorities, as well as federal funds for transit. Now, when we're talking about this MTP funding policy, it only applies to that 3rd bucket up on the screen, which represents about $34 million per year. All these other funds are included in the MTP. They're handled a little bit differently, and we'll be able to talk about those when we talk about the draft cost feasible plan later this year. Now, throughout June, I led each of your advisory committees and the MTP technical workshop participants, so your staff, through an exercise to go through and evaluate these 4 second draft funding scenarios and provide their feedback to create a recommended funding scenario for the MTP. So I'm going to summarize their recommendations here for you today and then showcase what those results are. Now, all of your advisory committees recommended that funding be set aside to directly support the implementation of safety countermeasure projects on the high injury networks as they were identified in our Vision Zero safety action plans. So we can maintain our momentum to improving transportation safety within the region. Then the second item that we received feedback on was primarily from the TISMO Advisory Committee, but all of the other committees agreed with this as well, was that technology is always a consideration for TISMO improvement projects. And as those projects are scoped to use the best tool available for the job. So they and all of the other advisory committees agree that there is no need to overprescribe an additional technology set aside for that TISMO category in the 2050 MTP funding policy. Now, similarly, all of the advisory committees recommended that the funding policy allow for all active transportation, so those bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure projects, to be considered for MPO funding. And they also recommended that we broaden the school mobility program's definition to include projects that also address and improve hazardous walking conditions. And then, with nearly unanimous support across all members of our advisory committees, their recommendation was very clear to not use MPO or those TMA funds for roadway widening projects. The feedback that we received was that other funding buckets, those first three that we had up on the screen, such as state, local, or even developer funds or discretionary grants, should be leveraged for those capacity improvement projects rather than using the limited federal funding for MPO priorities, that third bucket we had up on the screen. So with those recommendations in mind and based on that feedback, MPO staff and all of your advisory committees are recommending the high injury network set aside scenario as the funding policy for the 2050 MTP. We'll circle back to this for a discussion in just a moment. I want to highlight what the next steps are after our discussion today. So the next steps for the MTP's development, based on the outcome of today's discussion, will be to develop the draft cost feasible plan for the 2050 MTP based on the recommended funding policy, so you can see it in action. Then continuing to prepare the final MTP technical documentation and continuing our public participation and agency coordination as we enter into the final phases of the 2050 MTP's development. Our goal is to provide you with a preview of the draft cost feasible plan at your next meeting in September. And with that milestone in mind, we are nearing the completion of the 2050 MTP's development this year. So you will see a preview of that draft cost feasible plan in September. We're going to be hosting our 2050 MTP public meeting towards the end of September, with more information about that coming to you soon. And then we will be preparing the final MTP for adoption this December. So while that's 6 months in calendar time, that is 3 of your meetings, including this one. So that concludes my presentation for today. Does anyone have any thoughts, reactions, or comments on the recommended funding policy for the 2050 plan?
Questions in person? Anyone online have a question, Lisa? I guess we're saving all our questions and comments for a later date.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. So we'll see this as the recommended funding policy moving forward. Thank you.
Appreciate it. This time we'll go on to the report from OEP's Washington Fly-In and Sunshine Corridor. Mr. O'Malley.
And to speak with you. I want to give you a recap of our recent trip to Washington, D.C., but also talk about some of OEP's efforts to continued efforts to support the Sunshine Corridor, which is it's one of our top policy priorities. The Sunshine Corridor, as many of you know, will expand Sunrail and connect to an additional 200,000 jobs. So it's a huge economic development asset. So for us as economic development organization, obviously very important for us, and we want to be supportive of it and do whatever we can to make that happen. So along those lines, we had our DC fly-in in May and had very good meetings with a number of our congressional representatives. But the highlight of the meeting for me personally was a meeting that we had with the Federal Transit Administration. And Mayor Demings led this meeting. In addition to Mayor Demings, we also had Commissioner Gray from the city of Orlando. So I had a very positive meeting with them. I will tell you, they were impressed by the fact that the group that we brought was representative not only of the region, but also the fact that we had private sector partners there as well. So that they were very impressed by the private sector support that is already that's committed to the project, not just in word, but also in money. And then also the widespread public support for this. The fact that 3 counties and the city of Orlando have all contributed money to the PD&E study that showed widespread public and private support. So again, very supportive of them, and appreciate Mayor Demings taking the time to lead that meeting, even in the rain. So that didn't stop us, and had a very successful meeting. Later on that same day, I know you can't read this, but I'm not asking you to, but I just wanted to put that in there for the record. This is part of our handout that we left with all of the meetings that we had with congressional members and with the FTA. But also later that day, we had a smaller group of us spent time and sat down with House Transportation and Infrastructure staff to talk about the Sunshine Corridor. And for them, I will tell you the private sector engagement was probably the thing that they liked and noticed, and really will set us apart from other projects around the country. So for at least the next 3 years, that's going to be key to being competitive for federal funding. And they were pretty candid about that. So they did like the fact that the project enjoys strong private sector support. So to that end, we want to stay engaged, and again, stay in our lane, but be supportive of it, and work closely with MetroPlan Orlando, Florida DOT. And along those lines, Secretary Tyler, as CEO of the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission, has asked OEP to convene and to host a business stakeholder group. I know Mayor Dyer is on the phone, but he'll remember from the original go-around with Sunrail, there was a time when we thought that then Governor Scott might kill the project. Some of you will remember, he returned the money for high-speed rail between Tampa and Orlando. What's not well known is that Sunrail was also in the crosshairs, and it took a real effort of a lot of people, Mayor Dyer especially, but also business leaders in the region, to circle the wagons around Sunrail. And at the time, the predecessor to OEP, the Central Florida Partnership, and Jacob Stewart convened a group that we called the Core Strategy Team. I don't know who came up with that name or why it was called that, but it was a similar group to what we're going to do with the business stakeholder group. And really our effort there was to support elected leadership in the region and to lend private sector support behind the effort for Sunrail. And we were successful in protecting Sunrail, and we want to replicate that same type of engagement with the business stakeholder group. So we are going to have our first meeting in August, just on the other side of that wall there at OEP, and got strong private sector support, not just along the Sunshine Corridor, as you would expect those companies to be involved, but the hospitals and other major employers across all of your counties have stepped up, and they recognize this as a priority. Commissioner Ering, I should have mentioned on the FTA meeting, you'll notice there was you couldn't see her that well, but Michelle Mikas was in that meeting as well. And FTA was impressed with the fact that a road person was standing up and also talking about how important. So the fact that all of us are working together to make this happen is something that's going to be key to its success. So with the business stakeholder group, as I mentioned, we'll have our first meeting in August. We're going to work very closely with MetroPlan. The idea is that MetroPlan will really take the lead on public engagement for the PD&E study, and to the extent that we can help out with getting private businesses engaged as well, because that is going to be key to demonstrating to USDOT the widespread private sector support for the project. So we'll continue we'll work closely with MetroPlan Orlando staff, and as needed, if we need to come back and brief you on that, we'll certainly do that. And then until then, my contact info is here. I think you all, I hope you all know how to get in touch with me, but it's there for the record, and we stand ready and to help out however we can, not just to MetroPlan Orlando, but to your individual jurisdictions as well. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. O'Malley. If you could just stay there for a moment, I'm sure we'll have additional questions. I want to thank you and OEP for their leadership. And I will tell you, to get big things done in a region, you need to have a very focused, lasered approach. And that's how the region did it with Sunrail, and also big projects like I-4, and working with the state as well as we do. We can't just be, looking at all things. We got to be very focused. And the wonderful thing about MetroPlan Orlando, it's not just 3 counties, it's the entire region from many different voices. And I'm happy that OEP is involved from the business side, and we need to hear from the business sector, because that's what Washington is going to want to hear about. And I'm also happy that MetroPlan is gonna be looking at it from the citizen standpoint. And I think that's just important. And as we did in the past, because I remember going up to Washington to talk about Sunrail, they're very impressed that the region, from many different aspects and different groups, came together to talk about one item. And that's what we're trying to do here today. I want to thank Mayor Orlando and Buddy Dyer, as well as the Mayor of Orange County, Demings, for helping with this and taking lead. Mayor Demings, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, the only thing I add to bring further clarity to what they were talking about with the private sector partnership was the fact that we had the opportunity to maybe piggyback on the Brightline infrastructure to make the Sunshine Corridor work. Secondly, they're very interested in the fact that we have some corporate partners through a special taxing district to guarantee some of the ridership and bringing money to the table. So I think those two things made it very attractive. And lastly, the potential for transit-oriented development that would allow the workforce to get to and from work in the corridor, from that between the airport and the tourist corridor, and even the potential aspect of connecting to, I think, Disney, and then connecting ultimately to Tampa. That was very important to them. And so long term, they saw a lot of potential for this going forward into the future.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mayor. I should mention, sorry, Mr. Chairman, a Brightline will be at that August meeting too, so they're
Great.
definitely engaged as well.
Is Mayor Dyer still on the line? If we'd like to add anything?
He has logged off.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll open it to the floor. Anyone in person like to make a comment? Anyone online like to make a comment? Any of your hands raised? Mr. O'Malley, thank you very
Mr.
much for your
Chairman.
leadership.
Thank you.
This time we'll go to public comments on any item that's not on the agenda. Do we have any written requests, Lisa?
No written request, but we do have a hand raised from Miss Jasmine Ho, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello.
If she could state her name and her address and the topic, and she'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hopefully you should be able to hear me clearly. My name is Jasmine Hogue. I live in 3448 Crow Street in Orlando, Florida. And my question is in regards to the expansion of the Bright Line. So I've had opportunity to take the Bright Line to Miami, which was nice, but I also recently had an opportunity to take a trip to Japan where they had high-speed rail. So my question revolves around whether or not with the expansion, this will include a high-speed option. Because right now, to take essentially the Bright Line, it's about the same amount as if I were to drive.
Is that your question, ma'am?
Yes. Is it a high-speed option?
At this time, I don't believe so, but I'm sure that we can get the right answer to you. The only thing that I would want to be clear is that when you talk about high-speed rail, you need to be talking about what the definition of high-speed rail is, what's the maintained speed. And I don't think they're looking at that for the Sunshine Corridor because of all the stops and the long distance that would be required. But I'm sure we can get a better answer for you. I'm not in the position to give you a clear, definitive answer because I'm not involved in it from that aspect. But we can get you an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner?
Thank you. I believe she was actually asking about that Bright Line second segment. So I would suggest maybe even going on to, since it is a private company that has their future plans, going on to their website and potentially reaching out to their contacts.
I'm sure staff will research all of that in great detail. Anyone else, Lisa?
No more hands raised, and I have not received any in-person requests.
Okay, great. We'll now move on to board member comments. Anyone in person has a board member comment? Anyone online, Lisa? Okay. The next scheduled meeting is September 10th, 2025. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Well, that was painless. Thank you.